so much for that very warm welcome, Mindy. And thank you for the applause. I wasn't expecting that. That was wonderful. Thank you. Well, it's really great to be here tonight doing one of the Expert Insights webinars for Marshall Cavendish, who, as Mindy said, I've worked with for many, many years. And I know some of my friends from Marshall Cavendish are on the call tonight, as well as some of my friends from the distributors, Pansing. So thank you for joining us. And thanks also to everybody else who's on this call tonight. Now, normally, at the beginning of a session, I would normally say turn off your mobile phones. But today, I'm going to say turn them on in a minute, so keep them handy. Some of you may know me from some of the books that I've written. I'd love you to type a note in the chat box to make sure you direct it to everybody. So yeah, and I've done a lot of these. Thank you, Melanie. Email Essentials and 365. Bingo, baby. Thank you so much. My latest book is called Connecting the Dots to Inspire the Leader in You. It's nothing to do with email or business writing. So I'll tell you a little bit more about how that came about later. So I've got a free gift for you all, as well as an amazing offer from Marshall Cavendish. I want to get to know you right now. I'd like you to go to menti.com and key in that code, or you could just point your camera at the QR code and it should take you straight to a question. Righty. So what does success mean to you? The great thing about this is it's nobody knows. It's anonymous. Respect and money. That's what success means. Happy authors. That was obviously someone at Marshall Cavendish. Reaching your goals. That's what success means. Being able to help others. Love it. Thank you. That's wonderful. Helping others to succeed. And success is whatever gives me happiness when I've done something. I love that. That's a really great way of looking at it. To be financially independent and able to do what I want. Wouldn't that be a great thing? You see, even though I've written all these books, you never get rich as an author. So that's not happened to me yet, but it's one of my aims too. Able to do things we want, being passionate. Oh, I definitely love people who want to be passionate. So this is really great. Success means a lot of different things to different people. So I've got 11 people answered the question so far. One more. Watching people develop, mentally stimulated, growing each year, and laughing loud. Success means being inspired by what we all do all day. A wonderful way to feel that what you're doing every day is keeping you inspired. That's a great way, great relationship with family, freedom. I love it. Thank you very much. I'm going to move on to another question. And this time it's a multiple choice, but you can choose as many of those things as you like. So I'll let you give it a read and answer that question. I'm just wondering in this beginning here to ask you what concerns you have about climbing the career ladder. What concerns you? And I did a session this afternoon where I had 600 people answer this question. Can you imagine 600 people on a call? But I'm really glad we've got a nice, small, cute group today. So we might get more engagement here. Ah, great. Loving it. So a lot of people lack confidence. This is not unusual. I still lack confidence. Some of my best friends will not believe me when I say that, but I still lack confidence sometimes. Nervous to change my role. A lot of people said that on my call this afternoon. Nervous to change your role. What will happen if I do this, if I don't do this? What will happen when you stay where you are? That's what I want to know. It's hard to step out of my comfort zone. Quite a lot of people are finding it difficult to step out of your comfort zone. I love that 3 of you have said, I'm not concerned at all. I'm flying high up that ladder. Yes, that's what I love to hear. Flying high up the ladder. And some of you are quite okay staying exactly where you are. So isn't this interesting? A lot of people do have some concerns. And they're all very varied. What does success depend on? I want to know if you're going to reach your goals, if you are going to reach your heights in your career, what will it depend on? Building good teams. I love that. No self-sabotage. Okay, what's the opposite then? What does it depend on? As well as no self-sabotage. Oh, not self-sabotaging. Yeah. So what else will it depend on? Peer support, bravery, grit, uh, winning clients. Success depends on IT skills. Success depends on happiness. Success depends on bravery, on teamwork. Oh, isn't it great when it does this? I love Menti. Empathy, support, knowledge to do things, winning clients, perseverance, time management. The two words that are the biggest there means that more people have typed that word. So a lot of people feel success depends on confidence and success depends on hard work. These are the top two scorers at the moment. Very interesting, because in this session today, I'm talking all about success. We'll come back to Menti in a little while. But we're talking in this session today all about success. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts there. I am going to ask you to share your thoughts again as we go through here. So yeah, a few years ago, Marshall Cavendish asked me to stop writing email books and business writing books and write a book about my turning points in my life and what learning lessons I gained from them. So I'm thinking, okay, it's all about success, isn't it? So when I think about this word success, I think about this guy. I'm sure you know who he is. I don't need to ask you. This, of course, is Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple. Now, obviously, he passed away some time ago, but Steve Jobs had a very famous speech that he delivered for a group of graduating students. And in this speech, he was talking about how they could be more successful. But he made an interesting comment, and this is what he said. He said, "You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back." You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back. So that gave me the idea in my new book, Connecting the Dots. I go back and look at every key turning point in my life and the lessons that I have learned from it, from each one. So I'm connecting my dots with you tonight. I'm going to share with you 6 dots. And guess what? I brought my dots with me today. So here they are. I've got my dots with me today. Yes, that's orange. I should have red really, shouldn't it? So I brought my dots with me today, and I'd love to share with you some of my key turning points, as well as the lessons that I learned. And I hope that it might inspire you to be a leader and inspire the leader in you. So let me take you back for the first story to 1971. Now, I know some of you are probably not even born then, but in 1971, I was in my hometown of Sheffield. That's in the north of England, and I was born and bred there. And around this time in 1971, I was reaching the end of the 4th year at secondary school. Now, in those days, that was the first point where you could leave school at 15 years old. I was barely 15. Now, I was looking for a photograph of me at 15. Couldn't find one, but I did find one of me a little bit younger, and I thought you might like a good laugh. This is me a little bit younger than 15 years old, but it's very significant because my mom made me go to bed with rollers in that night. And I hated it when I woke up in the morning. I hated her all day, and my eyes there are saying, "I hate you, mother." But now I look back on it, I think I look quite cute. So 15 years old, my mom and dad and we had a talk, and I wanted to leave school at 15 because I could. I was no good at maths, at history, at geography, at physics, at any of those things, but I was good at English, and I knew I wanted to be a secretary. So my mom and dad wanted to remove me from school and put me into secretarial college. We went to see the headmaster. He summoned us to his office, and he told us, "You'll all regret it. She will never get far in life." I'll never forget that day. I can see us now in the headmaster's office. "You'll regret it. She'll never get far in life." So here's what happened. I went to secretarial college for 2 years. I loved every minute. I know I found my passion in those 2 years at secretarial college. And at the end of the second year, we had to take loads of examinations, and I got more qualifications than anybody else in our group. So I got Student of the Year. Hang on a minute. Do I have another one? Yes, I got Student of the Year. So I wonder what the headmaster would think to that. I wonder. So this is a key turning point for me. So my dot number one goes to my mom and dad. Yes, big hair was a thing in the 80s, everyone. That's me with big hair. My dot was my mom and dad. The first lesson for you today. What did I learn? And you might want to write some of these down. I might ask you later. This is a message for all parents out there. Please encourage your children. You never know what they may be capable of. Dot number one, my mom and dad, please encourage your children. Right, let's move on to 1981. 10 years later, there are no more rollers in my house. This is me. I was a secretary. Loved my job as a secretary, and I was quite good at it, but I knew it was very important for me to get more qualifications. So in 1981, I asked my boss to pay for me to go back to college 2 nights a week for some very high level qualifications of the London Chamber of Commerce. And during that year, our teacher was Linda Foster. I will never, never forget Linda Foster. She encouraged us, she supported us. I loved that course so much. During that year, she really freaked us out one day. She came to the class and said, "The Sheffield Chamber of Commerce is holding a competition called Super Secretary 1981. I'd like you all to enter. I think it will be very good for you to enter this competition." We all complained. None of us wanted to enter it because this is stepping out your comfort zone big time, right? So none of us wanted to enter it. We all complained. Our teacher pushed us. She supported us. She encouraged us every step of the way. Telephone tests, typing tests, shorthand tests, interviews. And 2 of us in my group found ourselves in the final 7 of Super Secretary Sheffield 1981. So we were so excited to be invited to the prize giving ceremony at a local nightclub in Sheffield called Romeo and Juliet. So my boss was there, my mom and dad were there, my friends were there, my colleagues were there. So many people in the audience were there to support all the finalists. So I'm waiting for a drum roll now around Singapore. I can hear a drum roll. Third prize went to someone else. Second prize went to someone else. And yes, you guessed it. First prize, Super Secretary 1981 is, ta-da! Am I hearing a loud round of applause? Oh, yes. Who do you think, now this is where I want you to type something in the chat box. Who do you think was the most shocked person that night? Who do you think it was in the chat box? No, I wasn't surprised. I was quite, not really, I was quite surprised, but there was somebody more surprised than me. Headmaster wasn't there. I don't think he was there anymore. No, my parents, no, they knew I was fabulous. They'd got every confidence in me. My parents had. It's my boss. It was my boss. He was the most shocked person. And he's like, "You, Super Secretary, you've got to be kidding." But never mind. The next day, he was very happy. You know why? This photograph and several more with him on it were in the newspaper the very next day. So I am very grateful to that teacher. So dot number 2 in my collection goes to Linda Foster, my teacher from 1981. That's what she looked like in 1981. I lost touch with her, but I did try to find her a few months ago when my book was published. And look at this. I found her and we had a Zoom call and I couriered my book to her and I can't wait to see her when I go home to Sheffield. So what did I learn? I learned something very, very interesting about the comfort zone. I learned that comfort is your biggest trap. The question is, how do you feel when you step out of your comfort zone? And I'd love to get some thoughts from you. I feel nervous. So people feel nervous. What else? What other feelings do you have? You can type as many times as you like. You're afraid. You're afraid to do it badly. You're nervous. You're panicky. Come on, give me some more words. I'm okay. I'm adventurous. Thank you. It's okay to feel excited as well. You're sweating. That's what someone put this afternoon. Instead of sweating, they put salivating. So I'm not quite sure whether that's a good thing or bad. I feel uncertain. Great. Somebody says here, I love it. Great. Good for you. Excited. Any more words that you can think of? You feel like a fish out of water. I know exactly what you mean. And that's how it feels, isn't it? At first, because it is called the comfort zone after all. A good friend of mine calls it the complacency zone. And I think that's a nice way to think about it. Is it the complacency zone for you? Is it the comfort zone for you? Is that comfort zone going to become very uncomfortable eventually because everybody else has moved on and you're there all alone? So lots of feelings here, regret having to go through that. I need a friend here for help. Sick, I feel sick. Oh my goodness. Very interesting, isn't it? We have so many feelings when we step out of our comfort zone. But what I think about the comfort zone is this. When you step out of your comfort zone, you move into your growth zone. So think about it that way. Can we really grow if we are in our comfort zone? Can we grow in there? No. We've got to keep expanding that comfort zone all the time so that we are growing constantly. And that's what I learned there. And I've learned that same lesson ever since that day, because I think, all my life, I'm stepping out the comfort zone. But let's move on to another dot, which is in 1982. In 1982, this is the end of the course, remember, I passed all my examinations, very happy. And I went to my boss and I said, boss, thank you for paying for me to attend that course. I resign. But it's okay. He knew I was going to resign because he knew that after getting those qualifications, I was able to go to teacher training college. And that was in Huddersfield, which is about 1 hour north of Sheffield, still in the north of England. Now, I loved that course. I knew I'd found another passion in teaching. Remember, Linda Foster, my teacher, she had really encouraged me and she had inspired me. I wanted to be a teacher just like her. So I loved doing this course in Huddersfield. And at the end of the year, me and all my new friends, and again, remember, that's stepping out my comfort zone, going to college in Huddersfield. Me and a load of new friends, we were looking through the newspapers one day, looking for a teaching job. And I saw this job, teacher wanted to teach on LCCI examinations board, secretarial course. Oh my goodness, could this be the perfect job for me? Next line said, in Singapore. Now remember, I am from Sheffield. I'd never been anywhere except Spain once for my holidays. I had no idea. And Google was not available in those days. Remember, in 1982, there's no Google, there's not even an internet. So I had to look in the atlas. And what did I see in the atlas? I saw Singapore is a little red dot at the other side of the world. OMG. I applied for the job. I was very, very happy to be invited to attend an interview. The interview was held in London, stepping out my comfort zone once again. I had to get a taxi to the station. I had to get a 3-hour train to London. I had to get a taxi across London to the offices of the London Chamber of Commerce, who were interviewing on behalf of the Singapore employer. I did my very best in the interview, and I was asked to sit outside for a few moments at the end of the interview. And I thought, what's going on? They asked me inside again, offered me the job, and I accepted it there and then on the spot. So in August 1983, I found myself in Singapore. I know it didn't look like this in 1983, but I did like that picture. I arrived in Changi Airport, and my boss met me at the airport. Remember, I've not met her because Pamela Forrester was the lady who had interviewed me in London on behalf of this school. So Pamela Forrester had recommended me. She'd done other deed, and she'd recommended me. The boss met me at the airport with her colleague. They sat in the front of the car. I sat in the back of the car as they drove me to the house where I would stay. And all the way I was talking about the journey, talking about the heat, talking about the trees, talking about the boats, talking about absolutely everything. Just giving it this the whole time. Nobody answered. Nobody said a word. And I just thought, wow, what's going on? Singaporeans are very strange. I didn't find out for a while why they didn't answer me. And I'll not tell you yet. But when I went to the school the very next day, I met these two ladies again. I met my colleagues, Indonesian, Indian, Singaporean, Malay, every different nationality you could think of. And I was meeting all these new people and meeting some students as well. But there was one commonality, no matter who it was that I met, whoever I met, whenever I opened my mouth, this was the face staring back at me. Now, do you want to type a message in the chat box? What do you think that face meant? What was that reaction? What do you think they were saying every time I spoke? What was that meaning? What do you think? Well, yes, thank you, Fei Chen. It was. They couldn't understand. Oh, thank you, Heather. She got a screenshot of that one. They didn't understand a word I said. You're absolutely right. Because I'd got a very deep Sheffield accent. For instance, this is a cup. I had to learn to say cup. The word duck, I had to say duck. And normally I would say duck. So that my Sheffield accent was so different. But I'm a quick learner. I may be from Sheffield, but I am quite bright. I learned very quickly that I knew what that face meant, and it happened a lot. It still does sometimes. And I knew that I had to do some changing. Nobody else is going to change. I had to change. I had to slow down my speech. I had to speak more clearly. I had to enunciate very well. I had to speak a lot slower than normal. But you know what? I survived. There were so many challenges. That was just one. And I have to give dot number 3 away to the lovely lady who gave me that job. It was Pam Forrester. Now, if you've bought my book or if you buy my book, you will find that Pam Forrester actually has 2 dots in my book because that's how important she became to me in my life. Pam Forrester became my best friend, my mentor, my guide, my fairy godmother, and my second mother. And that was the last photograph I had taken with her a year before she passed away, and that was 10 years ago. Bless her. So what did I learn? I learned that change is inevitable. Absolutely, it's inevitable. Let's have a look at how I've changed. Again, I just like you to have a good laugh at me. I don't mind if you're laughing at me. Those are a few pictures of me over the years, and this is me now. So yes, change is inevitable. But let's think about it. We don't grow when things are easy. When you're stuck in your comfort zone in the same old routine every day, doing the same things. We don't grow when things are easy. We grow when we face challenges. 2 years later, I'd lived in Singapore for 2 years, went home to England, hated it. And a guy that I knew of in Singapore had just found himself president of a college in Bahrain in the Middle East. Another big culture shock. He invited me to be head of the secretarial department. Of course, I said yes straight away. I was on a plane very, very quickly. I was on that plane to Bahrain. Now, the guy who was president had told me that there's one other lady in the secretarial department. Her name was Patricia. And not only would I be working very closely with Patricia, but I was also going to be sharing an apartment with her. So I was very keen to meet Patricia. And unfortunately, Patricia wasn't very excited about meeting me. Yep, she was not thrilled at all. She was not thrilled at all to meet me, as you can see from the look on her face here. I soon found out the reason why. Patricia had been at the college for 6 months already before that principal was brought in. And he made a lot of changes. Patricia had been teaching secretarial for 6 months. She wondered, why has he brought in this woman, Shirley, when I could have been principal? That's what she'd obviously been thinking. So I could definitely understand what her thought there. But never mind, I got a beautiful office. Oh my goodness, look at my gorgeous office. I had a beautiful office with one desk for me, looking over the beautiful Arabian Gulf. How amazing is that? I just loved my office. Okay, but it didn't last long because I could feel the daggers in my back. Every time I spoke to Patricia, I felt huge tension between us. Every time I walked into the staff room, everybody stopped talking. And again, those daggers came for me. So what did I do? I called up my mom and dad. My dad had some great advice for me that day. My dad was a very humble man, he was from a very humble background and upbringing. He was never wanting to climb the ladder of success. He was very happy where he was. He was a gardener. And my dad worked in the parks department in different parks all around Sheffield, making the parks look great and looking after the people who came into the parks. So when I told my dad and my mom about this challenge I was having, it was only a few days after I'd arrived. My dad said this to me: Shirley, just because Shirley's left Sheffield, it doesn't mean to say she's got to forget her roots. Now, remember, my dad was a gardener in the parks department. I remembered he would come home sometime from work and say, oh, Johnny, he's got promoted. Oh, no, you'll never guess what. He's just become the big I am. Big ego. Oh, and my dad had no time for people like that. So my dad said to me on the phone that day, don't forget your roots, Shirley. Don't become the big I am. And I'll never forget that. So my dad told me not to become the big I am. What did I do? The very next day, I went into school and I said, come on, Patricia, let's go and get your desk. We carried her desk into my office. We shared my office. We shared the timetable. We wrote the timetable together. We designed the curriculum together. We interviewed for part-time staff together. We shared the workload. And I was also very careful, because the reports came from me at the end of the month. I was very careful also to share the credit and to share the success. We jointly ran that department. As you can see, that frown turned into a big smile. We worked extremely well together for those 2 years. And not only did we do that, we became very good friends too. And we are still friends to this day. So what did I learn from that? Well, I learned from my dad. By the way, yes, my dad had big carrots. He was a popular gardener. He loved gardening and he grew the biggest carrots, the longest carrots ever. I learned from my dad, don't become the big I am. Just when you climb up a couple of rungs of the ladder, don't become the big I am. Nobody likes people with a big ego. It's not all about me and it's not all about you. We're all in this together. Let's help each other. So that's what I learned from my dad. Good old dad. Right. Well, let's go back now and take another leap forward to 1989. 1989, my boss said to me, come back to Singapore. The Singaporean who didn't understand a word I said when I first got to Singapore, she could now understand my Sheffield accent. She invited me back. So I went back to Singapore for 2 years. During that time, the boss said to me one day, Shirley, there's two guys in reception from a UK publishing company. And they want to go, I'm going to take them out for lunch. Will you come with me? And I looked in reception and I saw two very handsome guys. And I'm not one to refuse a free lunch with two handsome guys. So I went along. These were the two guys that day. They were Peter Marshall on the left and David Buckland on the right. If David Buckland's not on this call, I want to know the reason why. He now works for Pansing, which is a distributor for Marshall Cavendish. So we went for lunch that day. And here was the main question that they were asking the boss and me. What's the textbook that you use for all your different subjects in the school? So I told them what the textbook was for each individual subject. And I said, but we don't have a textbook that we ask students to buy for business English, because I've not found that there's one book that's suitable. I'd looked all over the place and there was not one book that was suitable. The next question from them knocked me off my chair. They said, will you write a book for us? I was so shocked. I had never dreamed of writing a book, never dreamed in a million years of writing a book, but I'd written a lot of notes and guidebooks for the school. So what did I do? I went home and I rang my mom and dad and I rang Pam. And I was given this advice by my mom. Actually, it wasn't advice. Go for it, girl. You know you can do it. You go for it. So that was great advice from my mom. And Pam Forrester, very, very interesting what she said to me. She said something to me that I have now got as a poster on my office wall. And it's something that I have said to myself many times since then. Pam said, Shirley, if you don't do it, someone else will. Wow. That blew me away. I wrote that book. I wrote the book. It was called Communication for Business. I don't have a picture of the first or the second edition. This is the third edition. This is the fourth edition. Yes, it's got me on the front as a cartoon. And as a result of this book, the publishers, which were Pearson Education, invited me to do something else. The author of this book, Model Business Letters, had died after writing 3 editions. So they asked me to revise his book. I wrote the 4th edition, the 5th edition. I revised it. We did the 6th edition. And again, I did the 7th edition. And I don't know, it's just an amazing, amazing opportunity that I got. And I could easily have said no when somebody said to me, Shirley, will you revise this book by Gartside? OMG, what if I fail? But what if I succeed? This book has now sold over 500,000 copies and has been translated into 16 languages. I do not know what languages, but one of them's Russian. I remember that one, and Chinese. So I'm very blessed to have had that opportunity given to me by Peter Marshall and David Buckland. And as a result, it's resulted in me writing many more books, as you know, that I've shared with you earlier, including this one, Connecting the Dots. So what did I learn? Dot number 5 is Peter Marshall. Peter Marshall, we lost touch, but when I knew I was published, it was going to print Connecting the Dots, I desperately tried to find him. My friend Leslie from Pansing found him. We had a Zoom call, and as you can see, we were both very happy to talk again. And again, I can't wait to see him and reconnect the dots when I go back to England next year. So dot number 5, Peter Marshall, what did I learn? It's got to be those famous words. If you don't do it, someone else will. Think about this. Next time your boss asks you to take on a project, next time someone asks you to join a committee, if you don't do it, someone else will. Think what could happen. And, something else that I learned there was that one opportunity could change your life, because that opportunity to write my first book really did change the direction of my career. I'm going to ask you to reflect on this, but I'd like you to think to yourself, maybe not now, maybe later, what opportunities have you said yes to? And what opportunities have you said no to? When have you said, yes, I can? When have you said, no, I can't? Share it with yourself. You don't need to share it with me. Think about another question here. What would you do if you had no fear? What would you do if you had no fear? Just think about those questions. Something to reflect on. At the end of every chapter in my book, by the way, there is a reflection section, which is really useful for making notes. Lots of questions I give you to reflect on, questions like this. So let me move on. I said I was going to talk about 6 dots tonight. This is the 6th. I came back to Singapore in 2002. And I set up my own company, my own training company, and I really enjoyed training organizations and their staff in Singapore and around Asia for many people. And I met one good friend, Ricky. And one day, Ricky said to me, Shirley, I want you to come with me tonight to a meeting of Asia Professional Speakers, Singapore. Now, I've been a teacher and a trainer for many years, but I never considered myself a professional speaker. I said, I'm not a professional speaker. I can't go there. He said, yes, you can. Come with me. So I tell you, I walked into that meeting scared to death. All those adjectives you used when I asked you, how do you feel when you step out of your comfort zone? I was feeling all those things: anxious, sweaty, all of those things, nervous. I looked around and I felt this tiny at the side of all those huge people in there, people that I thought was so high up the ladder and bigger and higher than I could ever be. But you know what? I did come out of my comfort zone. I just didn't stay at the side of the room looking at my mobile phone like a lot of people might have done. I did go and make an effort. Over the course of the next few weeks and months, I started to realize something very important had happened. I had found my new tribe. I had found a whole new tribe in Singapore. And that started me off on a learning journey. I learned so much from attending those monthly meetings, from getting to know different people, from joining masterminds from different people. The opportunities that it gave me to learn so much more and to share to others was phenomenal. But there was one thing that I didn't realize was going to happen, is that not just a local tribe, but a global tribe. APSS, as you can see there, it's got the APSS logo. APSS is just one of all these associations of speakers around the world that are members of the Global Speakers Federation. So over the months, over the years, speakers from all these different countries would come to Singapore and speak at our events. Wow, can you imagine the learning that we got from speakers from each of these associations? We got so much learning. I also got a global tribe now. So anyway, one thing happened one fateful day. Some of you may recognize this man. He's David Lim. He is well known as being the first Singaporean to climb Mount Everest. David Lim was a past president of Singapore Association, and he took me to one side at one meeting and he said, Shirley, you'd make a good president one day. Why don't you join the executive committee? Me? I'm just Shirley from Sheffield. Never dreamed of it. But you know what? David had planted the seed. He'd seen something in me that I'd not seen in myself. And he planted the seed so much that look what happened the very next year. The very next year, I became secretary on the executive committee. Then I became vice president. And yes, that's another funny picture of me when I was president of Asia Professional Speakers. But the story doesn't end there, because every year, I told you that APSS is part of the Global Speakers Federation. Well, every year, the president of the Global Speakers Federation comes to Singapore to speak at our convention. And one year, I was talking to the president over dinner one night, and she said to me, Shirley, you would make a good president of the Global Speakers Federation. Why don't you join the board? I tell you, I could have fallen over and fainted. The president of the federation was recommending that I join the board because she thinks one day I could be president of the federation. OMG. But again, she had planted the seed. So it's really important that we all look out for people and how we could nurture others. I think that's an important learning lesson here, that we can nurture other people. I went back, I thought about it, and yes, I did. I joined the board as treasurer. Goodness knows why they put me as treasurer. Then as secretary, then vice president, then president-elect. And in 2017, in Orlando, Florida, with Mickey there to support me, I became president, the 21st president of the Global Speakers Federation. It was one of the proudest moments of my life. That year that followed, I traveled all over the place. Let me move my head there. I'll just move my head around. And now I'm back again. I went to all these different countries to speak at their conventions. It was phenomenal, the opportunities that I had as a result of that. So what did I learn? What did I learn from this? And who do I have to thank for it? I am giving this final dot to David Lim. David Lim, because he saw something in me that I didn't. What did I learn? Here's what I learned. We rise while lifting others. On our own, we can get so far, but together we grow. We are better together. Let's work together and help each other. Let's learn how we are so much better together. We rise by lifting others. So at this point, like I say, I have shared with you 6 of my dots, 6 of my dots. Let's take another look at them, because what I think is important that we do now is find the common thread, because there definitely must be a common thread between all my dots. So let's have a look. Let me just briefly remind you. Number 1, encourage your children. Number 2, Linda Foster, get out of your comfort zone. Number 3, Pam, we grow when we face challenges. Number 4, my dad and his carrots, don't be the big I am. Number 5, Peter Marshall, one opportunity could change your life. If you don't do it, someone else will. And David Lim, we rise by lifting others. Let me show you them all in a circle there. I've shared with you today 6 dots from my book, 6 dots from Connecting the Dots. But if you buy the book, you will find that there are actually 12. So those 6 that I've shared with you today are just 6 turning points in my life, 6 key turning points. And in each chapter, I also share some insights from a global leadership expert. I've got 12 amazing global leadership experts who shared their key turning points in my book as well, including their learning lessons and helpful tips for you too. So one of the points I just want to point out, number 7 there at the bottom of the screen, is Leslie Lim. Leslie, I know you're on the call today. Thank you so much. I couldn't have done half of it without you, Leslie. You are a big dot in my success. And also Heather Hansen, number 12. Heather, I know you're on the call today, and you're just a huge dot. I love every single one of you. So here's the question, and I'm going to send you back to Menti for this question. I want you to think about the stories that I've shared with you today, and ask yourself, what is the common thread that links all of these together? What is the common thread? If you'd like to go back to Menti, I'd love to get your thoughts. It should have automatically changed. And I'd love your idea. What do you think links all of these points together? Go with the flow, grit. Somebody loves that word, grit. People, positivity, perseverance, bravery, anything else? It's not quite hit the nail on the head yet. Decency, goodness, all of these things are so, so very important. Personality, perseverance, go with the flow. Whoa, we've got some great, love is a good one as well. And it takes me back to the talk I did this afternoon. The MD was introducing the call for hundreds of people in Shell in Malaysia. And he was telling everybody one of the key things that he recommends everybody needs to put above all else. He said, network, network, network. The most important thing in my life has been relationships. Somebody's put it in that list there on the word cloud. Somebody put relationships. And I would agree that the common thread for me is very much relationships. If I'd not built that relationship with Pam, she gave me the job. I didn't have to keep friends with her, but I wanted to keep friends with her. I wanted to learn as much as I could from her. And we had a mutually fantastic relationship. Like I said, she became a key person in my life. The same with Leslie Lim. Oh my goodness, the stories I could tell you about Leslie Lim and the number of times we've had lunch and he said, Shirley, I've got an idea. OMG. All these people, I built a great relationship. Relationships are powerful. Relationships can get you a long way. And I don't mean that in a way that means that you're using them. That's not what I mean. Build relationships. And I think this is even more important now. Look at what's happened this year. And it's going to be more and more, the more IT develops, the more AI develops. We're behind our mobile phones. We're in front of our screens. But really, we've got to remember all the time that at the other side of the screen, there are real human beings. Right now, I'm staring at a green dot, but really I'm looking at your eyes. I'm looking into your eyes and into your soul because I know there are real people out there and I'm very grateful. So please, I urge all of you, whether you're on the call tonight personally or whether you're watching this as a recording when it goes onto the YouTube channel, build relationships, work on your relationships, get out of your comfort zone and make those connections. There is nothing more important than the human touch, no matter how technology advances. Thank you so much for being with me tonight. It's been a pleasure to be here and to deliver this webinar in the Expert Insights session for Marshall Cavendish. I'm going to hand it back to Mindy now. But first of all, let me give you all. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. And I wish you great success in connecting your own dots to huge success in the future. Thank you so much. One last tip. Never forget the importance of the human touch. I'm going to say it all over again. Every day online, you are asked to prove you are human. Every day online, you have to tick boxes to show which is the traffic lights and where's the crossings. Every day you are asked to prove you are human. I want you to remember that every time you have a call on Zoom or whatever you use on Teams or on Skype, remember you have got to prove you are human, because if you don't, lots of other people will. And that applies also when you put your fingers on the keyboard to write an email. Just remember, prove you are human.